Hey folks, my guest today is Ryan Brown. He's the brain behind RentRedi's software. He's the company's CEO and co-founder. Before launching RentRedi, he worked at Goldman Sachs and Price Waterhouse Coopers. He enjoys speaking about entrepreneurship and why he built RentRedi to improve the renting experience. Again, property management software for landlords. Ryan, you ready to take us to the top?
Absolutely.
All right, you're way cooler now that you're doing your own thing versus an accountant at PwC, right? Your cool factor went through the roof.
Trying to work on it every day, a little bit, just a
Uh,
little improvement.
all right, fair enough. So, what's RentRedi? How are you helping property owners?
So the real issue that we saw was a lot of people are working, 9 to 5 jobs, and they happen to own some property on the side. The majority of landlords are like that. They're not these massive property management companies. And right now they're kind of pegged with two difficult and not so great decisions. Either hire a property manager where they have all the time in the world, but they lose, 8 to 10% of their profit, or manage it all themselves and they pull their hairs out at night. And so we kind of sit in the middle of that where they get to manage it themselves, but at the same time, they don't have to pull their hair out trying to do that. So we provide them with software that really goes end to end in the process and helps them manage their properties themselves without any of the pain.
And what will they be paying you on average per month to use the technology?
Believe it or not, they only pay $9 a month on average, and that's
Okay.
total, not per unit. It's a pretty unusual business model that we've set up, but it has worked really nicely for a lot of landlords that do want to manage their property, have a bit of a premium service, but not necessarily pay premium price of, feel like they're being taxed on their growth.
Yeah, that's great. I want to get the backstory and the story behind your first customer, but where are you today? I want to bury the lead. How many customers are you working with?
So we don't share the customer number itself, but I can share we have landlords actively managing in all 50 states, and we've 3x that number actually this year, just in the year to date so far. So
Can you give me a sort of range? Are we talking like five or like 500 or like 5,000?
um, above the third option, I'll go to there.
Okay, got it. So
Yeah.
you have about 5,000 landlords already on the platform.
Yes.
Okay, take me back to the backstory here. When did you launch?
So really back in 2016, and as you mentioned, I was going to school in New York City at Pace. I had gotten that my first internship at Goldman actually, which is right across the street from Pace. And it really all started when I went to try to get my first apartment myself, not as a landlord, but as a tenant, and realized that it was incredibly difficult to rent an apartment. Actually going through the application process was quite difficult. And I had just gone through an application process as a student, which was not that difficult, which was the Common App process. I filled out an application once, I applied everywhere I wanted. It was pretty nice and easy. It struck me as shocking that the rental industry wasn't the same way. And so initially, version one was just building an app for myself and friends. And I had done our initial development.
So you had real estate personally that you wanted to use your app to manage.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
was really just building it from the tenant perspective. And it wasn't until I started bringing that to landlords that they said, hey, wait a minute, our side's just as bad, if not worse. And in fact, we're
Yeah.
kind of
So
being
sorry,
shoved
just to be
off to
clear,
use spreadsheets.
you didn't have real estate that you wanted to use your tool to manage with. You were coming from the other side and then built into landlords.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So
Totally.
first was the first customer then your landlord?
It actually wasn't. The first customer in the early days were actually landlords that were trying to collect applications on apartments. And so in the very early days, it was really just by going to different association meetings, meeting with some of these landlords and getting them to adopt the platform. When you build the software yourself, it takes you longer than you would hope in the early days. So there was quite a while of building up the software in the early days before it
So Ryan, are
actually.
you sole founder or do you have a co-founder?
I do have a co-founder.
Got it.
Um,
Did
yes.
you
So
guys just decide early on? I mean, obviously the equity split at the beginning is a challenge everybody goes through. Did you guys just say, screw it, we'll do 50-50?
the way we did, well, the easy thing for us is we're actually father and son. And the
Ah,
really
nice.
nice thing was his skill set. I mean, perfectly complements to
I
mine.
assume
So
you're the son. You're the
I
son,
am the
correct?
son.
Okay.
Yes. No, it's not me and like a 7-year-old running. um, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, his whole background, sales and marketing, mine is really more so focused on the technology side and customer support side of things. And so it just works perfectly that we
Well, so
get
what
to
did you
do
do?
something.
50-50 or does dad own more?
Oh, I mean, we don't share the equity split, but I mean, we do. we do have a pretty even split on it.
Well, no, I mean, I want to know more here because this is a debate every founder goes through. So are you saying, Dad, listen, engineering here is more important than sales, therefore I deserve more? Or is he saying, listen, son, I have more experience. Sales and marketing is critical. You could build a beautiful thing, but nobody knows about it. I deserve more.
I mean, I think it depends on your situation, but I mean, in a lot of cases, I do lean more towards the side of saying it's easier to just split it with your founders, unless you have someone that's coming in later or something like that. But I tend to lean more towards the side of saying it's easier to not argue about. And honestly, I feel the same way about the investment side of things. I mean, when companies go to raise that money later on, I think there's arguments over. There are big market movers where it does matter to talk about how it will impact your business in 5 years or 10 years, or in the case of funding rounds, 3 rounds down the line. But I think the same applies with founders, especially if you're going to be in a venture business. You're going to dilute yourself as you raise future rounds. You do want everyone to be invested. It's not good if you don't have a founder feeling.
So Ryan, have you guys bootstrapped this, or have you raised capital?
So we actually bootstrapped for the first 2 years of it. In the very early days, it was just me doing all of our development, and mainly doing our sales, and the two of us honestly handling all of the chats that would come in. We were, anytime you messaged in on RentRedi in those first couple of years, it was literally us on our phone or computer messaging back. In 2019, we raised our first venture round, and that was really when we brought on the core team to RentRedi. We grew to about 8 as a team. And then we raised a venture round earlier this year. So we've raised about $5 million to date. And
what was the pre-seed in 2019? How much?
We raised 1.4 million.
1.4. Okay, interesting. And then, so what? So you raised 3.6 this year?
Right.
Looking back, I mean, obviously you guys took dilution to do that. Most people are selling 10 to 20% of their business in these sort of early rounds. Do you regret that at all?
No, not at all. I mean, especially from the perspective of, we've looked at it not just from the capital perspective, but what also do those investors bring in each round. So, for example, TI Ventures was the lead for that very first round. One of the things that we have been focused on since day one has been, how do we take customer feedback and convert that very quickly into action that we can change in our business? And a lot of their model, in even doing their diligence on us, but what it went beyond that in doing, was saying, how do you learn from those customers? And that was something that we've been able to implement with them post-raise. Like they've helped talking to our own sales reps or talking to our own marketing team or support team, and understanding how do we actually synthesize that feedback, turn it into action, create a better product in the end result. So, I mean, from one side of things, RentRedi would certainly not be what it is today without that funding, but also beyond just the capital itself. There's a lot of knowledge that comes along with those investors. Hopefully, if you do it right, which I feel like we've been very lucky to have so far.
And then Ryan, obviously the market's a big one. You're north of 5,000 customers today. Do you think you can break 10,000 by the end of this year? Or is that going to take into 2022?
I mean, we are on track to hit all the goals that we want to by the start of Q1 or end of Q1. We actually plan on raising our A in just a few months in Q1. So the nice thing is we're right on track for where we want to be.
Well, no, I don't know what your goals are. So my question specifically is just around the market size and how fast you can add customers. Can you break 10,000 landlords in next year, or can you do it this year, you think?
I mean, I'd rather not speak directly to the customer amount itself. It's just not really a number that we share publicly. But in terms of the growth or understanding that side of things, I can say, I mean, we grow this year alone, we've grown 10% month over month. So I certainly, in terms of how fast we can grow, I've talked to a number of even founders in the prop tech space, and the space itself is really exploding. But even within the space, from what I've been hearing from founders, we've had a healthy growth rate even above the average in the prop tech space.
Got it. Sorry. What I'm trying to understand is how big you think the market is, right? So I'm a little confused why I don't want to talk about, like, do you think you can break 10,000 this year or next? But like,
I mean, in terms of how large the landlord market itself is, there's about 20 million landlords in the US. About 16 million of those are our segment. They're the smaller landlord segment. The Appfolios and Yardies of the world have primarily focused on massive property management companies, and they've done it well.
So small landlord managed by what? Number of square footage managed, number of beds managed, number of units. What does define small?
So in our case, I normally say 1 to 100 units. We have some people that break that and say, I don't care if I'm over what you've designed it for, I'm more than 100 units. But in our case, it can be as little as one single family home that you own to around 100 units. And a lot of it comes down to, I would say, more so the mindset of the person. So there's a very large difference between someone that says, I'm running a property management business where I've hired a number of employees, they are working under me, and someone that says, I have my day job that I'm working on. I have this real estate business that it allows me the freedom to either put a kid through college or retire early or go on a couple extra vacations. And I'm trying to figure out a way that I can manage this myself simply and easily without necessarily needing to hand it over to one of those management companies or go gray trying to do it all.
Got it. How are you adding new customers each month? What's sort of your go-to-market strategy?
So for us, it really has been, again, totally opposite from the enterprise side, which is normally booking demos and doing a demo with that person and helping them onboard. Ours has been totally product-led growth in terms of going out and marketing it so that landlords find out about RentRedi.
But how? That's what I'm asking. How do they find out about you?
So a lot of it is through paid marketing. So we'll do ads on different channels. They'll find RentRedi, and they actually from that point will self-onboard onto the platform and set up their property. Certainly they have us anytime they need. We have live chat on the site, but they don't have to interact with a person unless they want to.
So do you, I mean, it sounds like you probably have a good understanding. I see you've probably advertised on Bigger Pockets and some of these sites that a lot of my listeners listen to as well. What does it cost you? Or maybe what are you willing to pay to get a new $9 a month landlord?
I mean, I think it depends on the channel. I think in the early days when you're testing out different channels, going back to the beginning of last year, we were spending upwards of $1,000 a customer to add
to get a $9 a month customer.
Yep. And as that year went on, I mean, we were able to drop that customer acquisition cost to 80% of that.
What are some of the changes you made? Like you run a first ad on Bigger Pockets and it's way too expensive. It won't work at scale, but you make some tweaks and drop it down and you save 80% on the 1,000. Like what were some of the tweaks you made to optimize a channel once you enter it?
Countless. So, I mean, not just tweaks about like the messaging you're using or even the part of the product that you're talking about. When you're talking about an end-to-end suite with RentRedi, it does matter when you say, okay, are we going to talk about payments? Are we going to talk about maintenance coordination, accounting, listings, screenings? So there is, those choices, but really some of the surprising things too come from even things as simple as like, does it matter if you have a person in the photo or not? Does it matter if you have a house in the photo or not? Does it matter what type of colors you use? So all of those, we actually went through about 1,200 different ad creatives over the course of last year.
How did you do that? Did you use a firm or some tool to do that?
We did it both ways. So we actually tried with a firm early on, and then we
Which firm?
It's actually escaping me at the moment. I apologize.
Okay. What tool did you use instead to try?
So we actually did it all in-house. So Kelly, who's our head of growth, has run ad operations at a number of companies that have actually exited to AOL and Apple.
She launched 1,200 ads herself?
So we actually did we launched a number of those ads with that company in the early days. We launched a good portion of those ads on our own, yes.
So like she's putting together 1,200 images, 1,200 headlines, 1,200 descriptions, 1,200 like everything, or she's putting together 5 units of each of those and multiplying them all together in a bunch of different combinations.
More so the second one you're talking about. It's understanding what categories of those, and that's really how, I mean, when you look at it from the perspective of testing what actually matters. If you have 6 or 7 different elements that are different in the same photo, you really don't understand what is actually the negative impact or the positive impact related to that ad. You kind of need one small change in that ad and then test if that works or not.
Ryan, last question before we wrap up here. You founded in 2016. You've been cranking on this for a couple years now. Do you remember the first year you guys passed $100,000 in revenue and what you and your dad sort of felt like?
I actually don't know that I would equate it to a year, but I do remember when we passed that 100th customer, and that one is a very fond memory to me.
What year was that? Was that the first year or second year or further?
It's actually further. So we spent probably the first year and a half just in development. We had, a small number of landlords on the platform. But I remember we had passed our 100th customer back in early 2019. And he and I actually happen to be together. A lot of the time we aren't necessarily in the same place. We happened to be together that day, which was pretty exciting to kind of be next to each other, cheersing to that. It's funny to say, to look back at that now and think we're as excited as we were about 100. As the scale changes, you have to readjust what you how you feel for each 100. But it really was a super personal, exciting moment for us to
100 landlords back there, and early 2019 at $9 a pop. There, $1,000 a month in revenue. Is that the traction that you're able to take into that pre-seed round to attract the 1.4 million?
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge part of it. But to be honest, even more so than the scale was the reviews of the customers that were on the platform. And I think that is certainly the number side of things is phenomenal. to me, I majored in math. I love the number side of things. The part that I think was really the difference maker for that round was once investors started to talk to some of our landlords and hear not just, I like this, but if you removed this from me, I would be really pissed off at you. I think there's a huge difference between just, I enjoy having this in my life, and this would be incredibly detrimental if this disappeared. And that was really the big difference maker, was how emphatic they were about the product they were using.
And then look, you're north of 5,000 customers, say at a $9 price point. So we can say more than $45,000 in MRR, but like, what will it take to get you up to like 5 million in ARR or 10 million in ARR? Like, are you too cheap?
No, not at all. I mean, we have, when you look at our market of 16 million landlords, 5 million or 10 million is only a drop in the bucket compared to what you talk about when you look at the TAM, or the total addressable market, related to our landlords. And in addition to that, the way that RentRedi generates revenue isn't only from that landlord subscription. So we do offer a number of services that landlords have the option to add on, and we generate revenue from the.
Do you take a percent of fees? Do you take like 2-3% on rents paid through the platform?
No, we don't.
Okay. So what are some of those other models?
So like on the payment processing side of things, we do allow tenants and landlords the ability to process payments through the platform. If a landlord wants to incur that so the tenant has no charge at all, they can. But if they'd like the tenant to, essentially when the tenant pays $1 for ACH, we make some of that off of that dollar. And that's the same thing we've been able to apply to a lot of other things on the platform as well, where we've been able to go to large companies, TransUnion included, and say, hey, discount our landlords for tenant screenings. They'd maybe pay $40 coming to you. They'll pay $35 on RentRedi, but give us a larger discount on that, and we will make money on the spread, because you're treating the thousands and thousands and thousands of landlords and tenants on RentRedi as one massive portfolio, instead of just an individual landlord that has to bargain on their own behalf. And so we've been able to apply that to payments, tenant screening, maintenance coordination, even automating accounting, reporting tenants' rent to credit bureaus so that they can boost their credit, and even renters insurance. So in all of those categories, we've been able to take that mindset, that collective bargaining power of all of the landlords on the platform, and basically get better deals for them or their tenants for each of those situations.
What's team size today? How many folks?
Sorry?
How many team on the team today?
We're about 20 on the team today, which is wild. About 24 months ago is 2 of us. So it's been a great ride. And
then wrap us up here. You said you're thinking about a Series A. How much do you think you'll go try and raise, and why do you need the capital?
So we're looking to raise about 15 million. There have been some pushes to raise a little more, but I think honestly it's about all we need. And really the purpose of that will be just scaling up what we have already and integrating some services that will further help landlords. For example, the accounting side of things was one that they had asked for a lot. We actually added that in Q3. Where we've completely automated the landlord accounting side of things, or very much automated that side of things, so that that's just streamlined. But it goes far beyond even just the maintenance coordination and accounting, taking it truly to the as far as we possibly can in terms of integrating additional services that ultimately solve pain points that tenants and landlords have been bringing to us.
And to pull in 15 million without you and your dad getting extremely diluted, and any employees that you gave early equity to, I mean, you need to go figure out how to tell a story where it's, a $95 million, $100 million sort of pre-money valuation. When I look at, 20 people on the team size today, and you assume average revenue per employee of 120 grand, so maybe like a 2 or 3 million run rate today. I mean, you basically have to go tell a story of like a 25 to 35x multiple. What do you think gets you there? What do you think enables you to tell that story?
I mean, a huge portion of it is the fact that we do serve as a beachhead into a lot of other industries. And so in the early days, it was us going to someone like TransUnion and saying, hey, discount us for bringing you this massive group of landlords that is probably even larger than we're assuming it is today. But now at this point, we've gotten to a size where other people in our space, in the prop tech space, and even in the fintech space, are starting to say, we've raised capital in order to try to get in front of these landlords and tenants. And they're incredibly hard to find and get in front of. You have a
what do you mean, though? You just said all your growth is coming from paid ads. Why can't someone else just outbid you? What do you mean they're hard to get in front of?
It's very hard, not just in terms of getting in front of, but also a product that actually serves them properly. I give a lot of credit to the landlords in our industry, but they don't settle for a product that doesn't work incredibly well. So it's not very easy to just throw a bunch of money into marketing and say, we'll have a decent product and that'll be good enough. It really does have to be solid end to end. And I mean, we're constantly improving, but it takes a lot to get it there.
Fair enough. Let's wrap up, Ryan. Famous 5 quick answers here. Number 1, favorite book.
0 to 1.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
Mark Cuban.
Number 3, what's your favorite online tool for building RentRedi?
Intercom, the live chat.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
6.
And situation, married, single, kids?
Not married, but not single, dating.
Not married.
I have a girlfriend for about 4 years.
No kids. And how old are you?
27.
27. Last question. Something you wish you knew when you were 20.
You're going to get a lot of stuff wrong, and that's okay. And just start sooner. Start as soon as you can.
Guys, he started in 2016 solving his own problem with RentRedi.com. They broke 100 landlords on the platform a couple of years ago. Now over 5,000. They pay over $9 per month to manage the properties. That's not their only revenue stream, though. They've gotten really creative with renters insurance, maintenance coordination, payment processing, where they take a cut of, call it tenant payments. They've raised, call it about $5 million to date. Seed most recently, team of 20, targeting a $15 million Series A in Q1 22. We'll see what happens. Ryan, thanks for taking us to the top.
Thanks for having me, Nathan.
One more thing before you go. We have a brand new show every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central. It's called Shark Tank for SaaS. We call it Deal or Bust. One founder comes on, 3 hungry buyers. They try and do a deal live, and the founder shares back-end dashboards, their expenses, their revenue, ARPU, CAC, LTV, you name it, they share it. And the buyers try and make a deal live. It is fun to watch every Thursday, 1 p.m. Central. Additionally, remember, these recorded founder interviews go live. We release them here on YouTube every day at 2 p.m. Central. To make sure you don't miss any of that, make sure you click the subscribe button below here on YouTube, the big red button, and then click the little bell notification to make sure you get notifications when we do go live. I wouldn't want you to miss breaking news in the SaaS world, whether it's an acquisition, a big fundraise, a big sale, a big profitability statement, or something else. I don't want you to miss it. Additionally, if you want to take this conversation deeper and further, we have by far the largest private Slack community for B2B SaaS founders. You want to get in there. We've probably talked about your tool if you're running a company, or your firm if you're investing. You can go in there and quickly search and see what people are saying. Sign up for that at nathanlatka.com/Slack. In the meantime, I'm hanging out with you here on YouTube. I'll be in the comments for the next 30 minutes. Feel free to let me know what you thought about this episode. And if you enjoyed it, click the thumbs up. We get a lot of haters that are mad at how aggressive I am on these shows, but I do it so that we can all learn. We have to counter those people. We got to push them away. Click the thumbs up below to counter them, and know that I appreciate your guys' support. All right, I'll be in the comments. See ya.